Hello, sweet friends, and welcome to The Way Through. I'm your host, Bonnie Worth, and every single week, as always, incredibly grateful for the chance for this conversation and to, thank you for inviting me into your life and for us to really kind of dive in to some important conversations that will, my greatest hope is continue to inspire your path forward. I know they certainly inspire mine. Today, we are moving into a conversation around trusting the inner voice. Now, trusting our inner voice is one of the most vital things for us in speaking our truth when we look at living authentically, looking at what is being in alignment with our true self, all of those things that you hear in context in regards to your spiritual journey or being on a healing path. And yet, speaking our truth is one of the most difficult and challenging aspects of the journey as well. So it takes, at its core, it takes a lot of courage, this willingness to really listen deeply to ourselves, even especially in a world that's full of noise and doubt. We've got fears. There's a lot of expectations, whether those be external expectations or even expectations that we put on ourselves that are really, unhealthy or add a lot of pressure for us to be someone other than who we are. But that inner voice, that's the essence of all that we are. And even though it can sometimes be muffled, it might be, crowded underneath layers of conditioning, emotional wounds, energetic blocks. All of it comes into the scope of creating an intimate relationship with who we are, the inner world, that inner voice that really taps into, we could say, that goes into more of a divine, higher truth of who we are. So there is an emanation, this aspect of higher consciousness that we all have inside of us, which is untainted by the ego, untainted by the programming and all those external influences. However, when we look at this very human life that you and I are walking and all of the complexities of things that we experience or go through in our lives, that the external world or those outside influences, we could even call it the reality of life and situations around us, lead us to feel disconnected from our truth, disconnected from our voice, and almost like we are unable to trust the inner voice, the inner knowing, the inner truth, because something else keeps surfacing from us, maybe being able to express it clearly. So, what silences? Where do these complexities come from? Well, that's really where I want to start here on today on the show, is looking at what silences our voice. So let's look at it first and foremost in terms of some of the energetic blocks that we hear in conversation often. So, we look at understanding how the chakra system, the energy centers within us, how they can become stilted or discombobulated, for lack of a better way of expressing it, where we look at what causes us to hold back? Well, that energy center, those subtle energy centers that help to regulate our communication, that help to regulate our emotions and help us to connect with ourselves. When we look at the throat looking at speaking our truth, that self-expression. I mean, it can be very stilted, especially when we're looking at having a history or experiences in our life that have created a lot of shame, or we're carrying a lot of fears about speaking our truth, especially if where our perspectives and beliefs or how we operate in life is different to the norm. I mean, this is a really big one. It's why I wanted to start about with this, is when looking at, all of the mentoring that I do for the energetically sensitive, those that are connected to spirit world as mediums, being able to express our truth is a part of being able to admit and verbalize that we have these abilities. And as I teach in my programs, I would say, who we admit this to is ourselves. It's more important that we're able to accept it, fully embrace it, and speak it out loud to ourselves. It's not about who we tell externally, but there is a fear of people finding out our truth, especially when it maybe clashes with what is acceptable, what is quote unquote normal, which of course we all know there's no such thing as normal. What do they say? That's a setting on the washing machine or the dryer or something like that. There is no normal in this world, but there is a lot of judgment environment. And so within that creates this fear consciousness, and this fear and fear consciousness that affects all of us, irregardless of whether we're a medium or not. But it's just one of the ways of understanding this. So it's like the voice becomes non-existent, or the voice becomes faint, and it really can create a sense of voicelessness inside of us, because our voice does not match what's going on inside of us. Our voice does not match our truth, what we believe in, and again, maybe what our true feelings are about situations in our lives, or challenges even that come up in relationship. It can be difficult for us to speak to those things, speak to what we need, speak to our boundaries. All of it is in that container. And so it really even stilts what is, our desires for our life. And so we look at, yes, there are these energetic influences that sit there when we look and reflect from a holistic approach, when we look at the mind, body, spirit, and understanding those energy centers. But there's even more here, and I would say everything is energy. And so and the energy of what's running within our system is very influential, absolutely. But there are still energy components from other things that are going on for us that have moved or created what are these blocks. And so, a big part of that is when we're holding emotional wounds, our grief, our heartbreak, our unresolved or feelings of abandonment and shame, and all of these things, where we've created some guardedness in terms of our heart. We protect ourselves by not speaking up or not sharing what we really believe. And we protect ourselves. It's one of the ego's constructs in helping to keep us safe. But in it also, when we look at it, also prevents us from speaking openly. And simply because we're afraid of being hurt again. We're afraid of, as human beings, of these little humans that we are afraid of exposing our vulnerability. And so paradoxically, this is where, again, where the courage to speak our truth and the capacity to speak our truth is so vital and important. But it really it becomes even more challenging when we're carrying those deep-seated wounds, and we begin to look at holding back or swallowing our words, biting our tongue, all of those things when you consider, those times that maybe you've really felt compelled to speak up or to say something, and then you stopped yourself. The fear of being hurt again, the fear of being rejected, the fear of being judged, the fear of everything is so entangled in what is rooted in those deep fears that are all a part of our human conditioning. We all have them. And they're all, fear can serve us and fear can stop us. But and fear is one of the, probably, I want to say, the number one thing that really prevents us from being able to speak our truth, or in being able to express what is inside of us. So we can look at, okay, we're looking at beyond kind of the initial things that's like, oh, it's a throat chakra issue. Yes. And yes, and it's an emotional issue. It has to do with our wounding. And it also, of course, has to do in terms of what's shaping us, what's going on inside of us, those subconscious belief systems that are influencing our ability to trust, our ability to express ourselves. When we look at what we've inherited based on perhaps cultural conditioning, our societal conditioning, but it really goes beyond that. I want to look at, this is what happens for so many people based on what's running the show. And we don't even realize it's running the show, because what's going on inside of us is what's creating outside of us. It's just that we can tend to overlook what's in the subconscious paradigms, what's magnetizing or drawing towards us the experiences we're having, or keeping our voice stilted. Now, again, the conscious mind, for a lot of people who are new to my work and are coming into this conversation, there are in understanding that we can believe something to be true for ourselves, and we can believe it with our whole heart. We can believe that we're worthy of love, and we can believe that we are successful, and we can believe that we're worthy of respect, and that our voice matters and our opinion matters, and all of those things. We can believe it in our mind. We believe it. But that's the conscious mind. And the conscious mind only operates within about a 10 percentile of influence when we look at the magic of the universe, of what draws and magnetizes our experiences. What goes on is in the underbelly here. What is that operating within the context of about a 90% override, where it influences our ability to trust and express ourselves. And we inherit those belief systems. Those are belief systems that, one, we might it come would maybe direct belief systems that we've taken on based on our hurt and the wounding, those bad things that happened to us that said it's not safe for me to express my truth, it's not safe to be heard, my voice and opinion don't matter. All of those experiences that we've had that maybe have backed up or instilled within us our own belief, or but it goes beyond that. There are other belief systems that sit here of what we've inherited from our family, what we inherit from culture, what we're born into in terms of what is the framework or our blueprint for our soul's existence. And so here we can look at some of the earliest childhood memories of what we were immersed in within our environments that we grew up in, the opinions, the behaviors, the feelings of our parents, what they teach us, what family and caregivers, what they teach us, what they imprint into the subconscious mind before we even have a say, so to speak, about what we believe. Instead, it's instilled with us, and we're very, we take it on as sweet little babes between the ages of 0 and 7. We are completely in wonderment of the world around us, completely in trust with whatever someone is teaching us and telling us. So we haven't really established our connection to our own truth. So instead, we're leaning into and relying on the truth that's around us. So it affects what we should say, how we behave, when it's appropriate to speak, when to be quiet. And so there's a lot of belief systems that we take on and as we're born into that become this framework that, without even our conscious awareness, are operating within invisible layers. And those invisible layers are whispering messages to us. Don't stand out. Your thoughts or your opinion is not valid. Be quiet. Be quiet. And we be quiet. And what can happen within a true a definition of what being quiet represents, it can be a way that we attain love, to be accepted by being a good girl or a good boy, right? We're quiet. And so it's how we are recognized or respected, and we receive love as a result of being quiet. But it can be bigger than that. It can be the don't speak up, don't be seen and heard. We are immersed within where feelings and opinions and behaviors are about what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And so many individuals, and we can grow up where we learn to suppress our voice. We learn to suppress it in order to gain approval. We could say in order to avoid rejection. And so these become internalized messages that are in the subconscious that says, if you speak up, you're going to be judged or rejected. Being vulnerable is dangerous. All of these things. And so it unconsciously halts and stops us from speaking our truth. Because in some way there's again, we look at the scope of fear that is tagged within that consciousness that prevents us to speak our truth. And so these internalized belief systems, and I mean, there are thousands of them. There are thousands. Of course, each one of us is here for unique experiences in this life, which means each one of us can have different verbiages of these belief systems that can create the unconscious patterns that are not even in our awareness. And they shape us. They shape the way that we see ourselves. They shape how we see the world around us without even realizing. They function very quietly, but they are functioning very powerfully, and they influence how we show up in our relationships, and especially in times, especially if we're told to hold back in sharing our true feelings, if we are maybe pressured in some way, either through overt experiences or trauma in our lives where we need to downplay our needs, or if there is someone else in the home that whose needs are being made to be more important. All of those things. We can downplay our needs. We also can learn to avoid confrontation, because in confrontation makes, triggers our nervous system to the point where we fall back into fear of being abandoned, fear of being rejected, fear of being hurt, abused, or re-traumatized in some way. It can trigger and come up for us. So all of those are in what constitutes the set of belief systems that really lay the foundation of how we speak our truth, or when we choose to, or when we choose not to. And that impacts the way that we engage, with all of life. It really results in what we could say some self-censorship, because there is this emotional disconnection from our own truth based on these things that have happened. And so, we can look even at a deeper level when we look at some of the collective belief systems. I mean, there are familial, matrilineal beliefs. There's ancestral beliefs that we bring in, when we're born. All of that is that framework. And so those messages are embedded within us. They're a part of, we could say, our DNA. And we take on stories and where narratives where there have been messages that, like I said earlier, being vulnerable is dangerous, being different is unsafe, that it's better to stay silent than to risk being judged, abandoned, criticized. And again, your feelings don't matter, or your voice doesn't matter, your opinion doesn't matter. And all of those things, those are deep seated. Those are a part of conditioning, so deeply ingrained that they become an aspect of ourselves, and it's not even the truth of who we are. It's an aspect of who we are. It's who we believe ourselves to be. It's what we believe is the truth, and yet it's not really the truth. It's not. There's a deeper truth here. But that programming restricts our authentic expression. It suppresses our voice. It disconnects us from our true self. And what those barriers do is they create a false sense of safety, but a false sense of safety at a cost of silencing ourselves, of suppressing even our own essence, the authentic self, the one that is much deeper inside of us. Now, authenticity, again, if you've been tuning into my show, you know that authenticity is not defined by what the dictionary says. It's not about whether someone else is judging you as being authentic or not. Only you know if you're being authentic. Only you know if you're speaking your truth, if you're aligned with your truth. But this is, again, without conscious awareness, we can mistake the beliefs that we've inherited, all of these conditions, all of these layers, as the genuine truth. And it's what creates the limitation for our growth, the limitation in terms of our connections within our relationships, but also importantly, even limiting what essentially can become possible in our lives, where our being able to speak, to share our voices, to share our wisdom, to share deeper truths is how we empower or can help and serve other people. And I know from so many of the women that work with me, there's a deep compelling desire to help other people, to speak truth, to support others based on their journey and experiences. And yet speaking up, um, allowing allowing themselves to be heard are one of the biggest barriers, because of what's generated from that fear-based consciousness that exists and operates and governs so many of these belief systems that are running through the underbelly of the subconscious in all the ways in which we've been conditioned. Now, it's not saying that this conditioning is this bad thing that's happened to us, because it certainly isn't. We can look at here we are as little human beings. We've come into this world. We've come into this world for a reason, for a season, for lessons and wisdom and growth and evolution. And really what we can look at is a scope of our own self-realization. And we come into this world with a set of conditions for for us to work through in order to overcome and heal some of the karmic residue from previous lifetimes. We come in for understanding. We have certain things that our soul is here to attain and grow and understand in this lifetime, lessons and in what becomes what is a mission or purpose that is deeper inside of us, that doesn't, we may not even be aware of the reason for being, but we are here and we are an experience of our life. And we come in with an ego, an ego, which, God bless our ego. It's what makes us human, but it does hold us into confinement of what is our truth. And as we awaken and grow, we start to shed the layers that of untruth, the layers of limitation, the layers of things that have held us back, that have suppressed our voices, that have made us feel inferior, the not good enoughness that can exist within all of us. And so we begin to unravel and untangle everything we've taken on that was never ours to own in the first place. It was actually never our truth. And so we begin to purge as we dive in to start to discover more about where our truth lies, what's right best for us, how we understand and interpret the world, even though it's different from what may be someone else's experience or someone else's interpretation. We separate ourselves out. Now, let's talk about separation, because we hear this a lot. We are all separated. We feel individualized. We feel, and we are here. It's like you have your life, I have my life. We have different, we're separate from each other. We have separate. We operate within different belief systems. We're separate within our belief systems. We might be separate in terms of what our truth is. We might be separate in so many ways. We live in different locations. We have different roles and identity, different roles in our life. So there's so much in terms of what is our separate, of being separate. We can even look and deeper in terms of what separates us. Culture separates us. Religion separates us. We can look at color or origin, sexual orientation. All of those things separate us. So we operate with a lot of separation as little humans in the container of the ego, and that is divinely perfect. It's what is supposed to happen for us in order to move into an understanding of our own self at the deepest level. So we're created in separation. We experience separation, and then as we start to become aware of our greater truth, become aware of what our beliefs are, what we truly feel is right, best, and true, irregardless of other people's judgments, of other people's opinions, all those things that can be so influential in the container of the human based on the separateness. That we now instead begin to separate ourselves from the things that are not our truth. We begin to separate ourselves from the very things that have led us to suppress our voice, to hold back our truth. We separate ourselves out from the belief systems that are running within the underbelly that are not genuine truth. So we are separate. And then through a shift in consciousness, we begin to create greater separation from what is untruth. So we can come into an understanding that we are all connected and one. But so separation serves us, and separation is what allows us to experience the things that we experience in our life, to again resolve the karma, to look at healing our wounds, what the soul is looking to hear and gain in terms of wisdom and understanding in this lifetime. And our souls are always looking for every kind of potential experience possible. It's just at the human level, in that little ego, it's not much fun. It's painful. It's through suffering. We grow through suffering, whether we like it or not. We evolve in consciousness through suffering. It's how we're programmed. We're programmed within separation and suffering. And so we look at all these bad things that happened are in service to us. And I know that's a bold statement, and especially for anyone tuning into my show for the first time, it's a bold statement. But understand that when we look at the deeper scope of who we truly are, that the ego is what allows us to have our human experience. And once we begin to unravel, we begin to shift from the ego identity, and we begin to create more of a connection to who we really are, or we could say to the higher self. And it's through the higher self that we experience greater oneness, greater connection, where we begin to thrive a little bit more in our life. But we need our ego. We require, and I think this is one of the greatest points of resistance for a lot of people who are on this path. It's like, why do we need to do this? I just want to be in the experience of the euphoria. What is ease? What is the unconditional love? And yes, and those past experiences, those karmic patterns, everything those unresolved issues, those emotional wounds, all of those conflicts, everything that we are experiencing, all of that residue is a part of what we're here to heal, to understand, to ultimately alchemize, and to remember our own power. But all of those states serve us. They serve us in the sense of getting to know who we are at the deepest level. They help us to know our purpose in this life, to understand our role, our contribution, and most importantly, as I said, our own power. And it's through the contrast that we grow and evolve. And it's through the contrast that we create what would be a greater sense of self-worth, a greater sense of confidence, a greater sense of openness, of love. It's through the contrast. But we don't like to do the contrast. We just want the good. We just want to get over it. But unfortunately, as part of our in the humanness, is we can't bypass all of everything else that's going on. It's so important for us to really move through and be with the pain, to look at those deep-seated insecurities, to confront the fear of rejection, all of those fears that come up, because it's through that we, if we're not conscientious of it, we continue to reverberate it. We reverberate it through our own consciousness, through our energy fields. And so when we look at these deep-seated experiences, these things that happen to us, that reinforce some of those internal unhealthy limiting beliefs, that where we are unworthy, we are inadequate, that it's unsafe to speak our truth. All of those things, if they go unattended, they will continue to shape us, to influence us, and really create what are some unresolved themes or unresolved patterns from our past, where even our experiences today will echo things that happened in the past. And so we can't run away from ourselves, because no matter where we go, there we are. And so we have to take a look. We have to look at what are the barriers, what is manifesting, what is creating in our lives, what is manifesting in our life based on subconscious barriers and inner narratives that are telling us that we're not good enough, that speaking our truth is dangerous and will be rejected or hurt in some way. So all of that masks us at the core. So anything unhealed, it's really what this life is all about. When we think of being on a spiritual journey, this spiritual journey have all these invitations for us to get to become more vulnerable, those unhealed wounds that are there, that are preventing us from being authentic, from being fearless in our expressions of our truth, fearless in our pursuits, whether our careers, our passions, our art, whatever it is, where there are fearless expressions that we said yes to before we even incarnated. And so anything we look at, those conditioning, and again, as I shared, there's so much that says there's this complex web of what's unresolved in karma, unresolved because of ancestral lineage, unresolved because of our own experiences in this life. So everything, is this what we're carrying forward previously, what we're carrying forward from an hour ago, what we're carrying forward from 3 minutes ago or 30 years ago or whatever. There is information that is operating at a very subtle level that is affecting our capacity to be honest, to be fully seen in the world, that are shaping our capacity to do the work that we feel so compelled to do. And so we have to really take a look at ourselves. We have to look deeply into ourselves. All of those factors, the fear, the trauma, the conditioning, the energetic imprints, everything is what breeds at the root of everything. What's at our root? What's at the root of self-doubt? What's at the root of I am not enough? What is at the root of my truth isn't safe? What is at the root of this bad thing is going to happen if I speak up? That's, all of these things. What's at the root of it? Because what's at the root is what we need to address, what we need to shift, heal, and understand at a deeper level. Because then, and only then, do we start to move beyond the cycles of silence, the cycle of suppression, the cycle of that fear. So it's really, like I said, it is a complex web. There's so many aspects of things that we need to consider when we understand what it means to be on a spiritual healing journey. And it feels risky. It feels risky. And what's happened in the past, especially if you've someone who's been traumatized, that safety is fractured. And when safety is fractured, it's hard to trust. When safety is fractured, we keep our voices locked away, even from our own self. So we look at this healing journey. It's essential. It's a part of our growth and evolution at the deepest level, but it's also what's going to allow for us to truly thrive, to thrive in our lives so that we can, enjoy our lives, that we can manifest the things we're looking to manifest, that we can create a frequency and an energy that becomes attractive to the very things that we desire for our life. So we look at, where do we need to dissolve the stagnation? What do we need to heal that will allow us to really speak our truth at a deeper level, but more importantly, so that we can do it from a sense of deep safety, deep safety. Safety is fundamental. Being safe in our bodies. So, in order to speak our truth, we need to be safe in our bodies. We need our nervous system. Our nervous system has a record of our past trauma. So, getting our nervous system on board with being safe, of feeling calm, of being grounded in the body is essential. It is fundamental when it comes to trusting our voice, trusting our truth, trusting what we feel is right and best, and allowing for that authentic self to be expressed into the world. And at the core of this, that to speak freely, to be vulnerable, we need to begin to regulate our nervous systems. Our nervous system, we could say, is the master controller of how we respond to stress, to threat, to safety. It holds records of everything in the past, all of the trauma, all of those adverse experiences, the emotional wounds that we carry, including the information, the records of what we've experienced in previous lifetimes, as well as the records of what we've taken on and absorbed as a part of those belief systems that weren't ours, that we're holding on behalf of others. And so all of it is what sits as a record in our nervous system. So our nervous system is like the hard drive for everything in our life. The nervous system is the hard drive for our vibration, for our emotional body, for our manifestation. The nervous system, we need to really look at how can we regulate, how can we create safety, and how can we move away from the reactions from the previous programming based on, again, those traumas, the emotional wounds, those adverse experiences. So when we look at the nervous system, when the nervous system perceives danger, whether it's real danger or it's just perceiving danger, it might happen, it could happen. It's happened in the past, so it's looking at the records of the past. When it perceives any scope of danger, it activates in us the fight or flight, freeze, the shutdown responses. And those responses, those are survival mechanisms. Those are a part of our survival instinct as humans. And that survival instinct is designed to protect us. And when it becomes activated, that survival mechanism, when it becomes activated due to what's unresolved inside of us, it creates this persistent state, this hyperarousal that is about anxiety, hypervigilance, numbness, shutting down, disconnection, fear of speaking up, fear of voicing our opinion. Both, it makes it challenging to access calm, to become centered in our heart, centered in our presence. And especially that's because that's where authentic expression feels safe. And so when the nervous system is activated, it's going through disconnection. It's nervous, it's anxious, it's overly guarded, afraid of being vulnerable. That heightened state is a baseline for us, and it becomes how we interpret our environment, seeing threats where maybe none exist, perceiving rejection even when there isn't any. Okay. It's all programmed inside of us. So, our role, when we look at how do we access our inner voice, how do we trust or speak our truth, what it comes down to when you look in relationship to everything I've talked about here, in relationship to everything, it comes down to being able to restore a sense of safety, to regulate the nervous system, to calm it down so that we can consciously shift from survival mode, from the survival instinct, into a state of calm, restful, peaceful instead. Because it's here where, again, the openness happens, where, we can begin to move into a place of creating safety, connecting to our truth without fear, speaking our truth without fear. So it's when the nervous system can calm, and the nervous system calms from shifting those belief systems. The nervous system calms from restoring energetic flow through the energy centers. It calms from our ability to move into the deep healing that's required for us to look at our wounds, to see what happened to us, because what happened to us matters. It matters. And so we need to be willing to sit with it, to be with it, to feel it, to move through it. Because in the willingness to do it, it's what helps to create the peace, the calm. Where does peace come from? Where does calm come from? Where does even peace in our world come from? Regulated nervous systems. All of the unprocessed trauma, everything that's been stored energetically and otherwise, is what creates those barriers, the tightness in the throat, the constriction in the chest, that sense of disconnection from the body. When we look at, even disassociation, it's all nervous system related because it's from hyper alert state, and it's impossible in hyper alert state for us to speak our truth without fear. It's hyper alert state that provides us which prevents us from having courage, for stepping forward, to expressing our boundaries, to voicing our needs, all of it. So we need to look at, how do we regulate our nervous system? Well, we can rewire that, of course we can, in our energetic and emotional landscape, so that we're no longer perceiving ourselves as under threat. We need to create safety in the body. So, how do we do that? Well, we connect with the body, even reminding ourselves and giving ourselves a hug, rubbing our arms, rubbing our legs when we start to get hyper or panicked or anxiety. Connecting with the body can help to calm the nervous system. It brings us into presence. It helps us to say, I'm here right now, right in this moment, I am safe. In this moment, I am safe. So instead of where we have this reactivity, we move into consciously responding so that we are regulating our nervous system, and we're doing it in the moment, And we're also doing the deeper work. We're considering our energy centers. We're shifting our beliefs. We are looking at of exploring what has been suppressed and what we've been holding on to in terms of these wounds that we've been carrying, what's been inherited. And as we begin to unravel everything, the container of the ego changes. The container, the framework, the blueprint of our existence begins to change, which means we go from operating in a scope of low ego to a scope of operation of high ego. High ego, where there's been an establishment of a foundation of safety. Safety that nurtures trust, that nurtures the vulnerability, that nurtures what is that genuine expression. So when we move ourselves out of from reactions in it, in the ways that maybe we've reacted in the past, we can come into feeling more grounded. It becomes easier for us to trust our voice, to express our truth, because we feel safe. When the nervous system is regulated in safety, we feel safe, and it becomes so much easier to express our truth, irregardless of external circumstances. Okay, but it does require this scope of being conscious of what's coming up for us. Where are the invitations? What do we need to shift, heal, address within us? Where we begin to create a broader knowing of who we are, but we have to purge everything that we're not in order to do it. Remember, we have to separate it all out. We have to sift through it. And so how do we do it? Well, as we do it, we deepen our connection. But how do we do it? Well, we do it by daily. I want to encourage you to do it by daily vocal practices. Yes, seriously. Being able to sing, to chant, to read out loud, even, is going to help to strengthen your voice, because it's going to help to release energetic tension. Okay. Being able to express, let yourself sing. Here again, we all can sing. Everyone has capacities to sing. Some people are better than others. I mean, maybe you heard me say we're not all born Beyonce, we all don't have, those vocals, but we all can sing. We all have capacity. So being able to make noise with our throat, humming, buzzing, chanting, reading out loud, instead of reading in silence, grab your book and read out loud. All of it's going to help to strengthen the voice, and more importantly, release the tension that is there, in energy that has caused suppression of the voice. Okay. You can also, as I said early, sensory awareness is so important. Sensory awareness, again, how do we create safety in the nervous system? We need to tune into the body. Tune into your body, touch your body. As I said, hug yourself, rub your arms, rub your legs. All of that helps to ground you in the body. It helps you to tune into the body, tune into the sensations, tune into how you're feeling, what's going on inside of your body. Just becoming aware of your senses. What am I thinking in this moment? Where am I letting my mind go in this moment? How do I feel? How am I feeling emotionally? How do I feel today? Do I feel happy? Do I feel, calm? Do I feel anxious? We get up, we jump out of bed on autopilot, and we all do, because it's a part of how we operate. It's a part of our operating system. And we get out of bed without even checking in with ourselves, without even creating a connection to the higher self, without even taking a moment to consciously create how we would like this day to go. And so look at how you start your day. Check in with yourself throughout the day. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's going on inside of you? More importantly, what do you need? What do you need? Have you ever stopped yourself in any moment and said, what do I need in this moment? We don't. We are so programmed to do, to do, to do, to do, that we don't catch ourselves to stop, to be in the moment, to be present with ourselves, to be present with what we need, to be present with how we feel, and to just take a moment to go, just hello inside of me. I matter in my life, to be a priority in my life. So when you look at expressing your truth, What is your truth? Well, if we don't stop to connect with ourselves, we don't stop to check in how we feel, what we're thinking, we won't uncover our greater truth. Is that true for me? I that's one of the questions that I encourage you to ask when you look at where do your beliefs lie? What's true for you? In the middle of conversations, when you are interacting with other people and they're sharing their opinion and their points of view. Are you nodding and just agreeing silently? Or are you stopping and asking, is that my truth? Is that what I believe? Because I encourage you to question your beliefs. Question. The more that you question the beliefs, the more awareness begins to shift that there could be a greater belief that is actually looking to be realized inside of you. So be willing and be curious. Approach yourself in complete wonderment every single day. And remember how important that you are, and your voice is important. And so, here, when you look at allowing yourself to speak openly and honestly, shedding all the layers of repression, of shame, of guilt, creating space for genuine connection to who you are, to every time you choose to express what's real, what's true, what you believe, despite the fear and doubts, the more that you affirm your right to be seen and heard, to take up space in this world, to express your truth, and to really move forward in a way where you feel liberated and free to be who you are. And that's really what we could say is the ultimate act of spiritual liberation. All right, sweet friends, thank you so much for tuning in today. I truly hope that something I shared on today's episode resonated with you, supports you on your journey. And remember, irregardless of what may be coming up in your life, the challenges that are at your doorstep, or the things that you're looking to work your way through to greater awareness, there is always a way through. And I'm so glad I have a chance to share those opportunities with you.